Hey friends, how are y'all doing today? We are going to make a soup that I'm afraid, at least, I don't know if you're guilty of this, I am. I don't think to make this often because in my brain somehow I think it's too complicated. Isn't that silly? It is so not complicated. We're going to make French onion soup, homemade, and it's healthy. I'm going to tell you how and why. But we are going to make this. It is going to be economical. It's going to be healthy. It's going to be easy. You can make it ahead. You can freeze portions of the process. I mean, what's not to love? You have to love onions. This is true. But this is one of my Mr. Patient's favorite soups. And I am happy and excited to make that for him and for y'all today. So let's get started making homemade French onion soup. Thanks for being here today. I am so glad you're here in my little house with me. I'm Miss Katie and this is Heritage Ways. Heritage Ways is where I encourage homemakers and I teach homemaking skills. I do that here at YouTube. I do that on Instagram. I do that at the website, heritageways.com, through my cookbooks, my e-courses in person, and more. So I hope you will choose to subscribe here at YouTube and visit me often. One thing I like to do, it's just a reflection of who I am. First of all, I am intentional. I am transparent. What you see is what you get. But I just share what works for us. And what works for us is I have to be economically conscious, money conscious about what I'm spending. I love a good deal. I love markdown foods. And I look for those. I always have. And so one thing we're going to use today are these sliced French toast, or French bread rather, rounds. It's just sliced French bread, but it was in the markdown section at our Kroger, a nearby Kroger. So it was 84 cents. Originally it was $2.49. So it's going to become toast anyway. So that is what I'm using for our French onion soup. I'm using this part of this baby Swiss cheese wheel. This is local Swiss cheese. I do live in Amish country, and this Guggisberg cheese is local, and also it was marked down. And so I'm going to just use some slices of that. Another thing I'm going to do today is show you that I'm going to use my Lodge. We're going to use Lodge cast iron pan, or not pan, but my dish, a pot here, can't think of the word. And I love Lodge cast iron. It's from down where we're from in Tennessee. But I'm using cast iron because I am going to be caramelizing onions, and I really like to do that in cast iron best. And I'll show you the new knife that I got. I love it. It is so super sharp. It cuts like butter. But also I want to tell you too that I love this. I'm going to show you how it works. But this jar opener, it allows you to open jar lids and reuse the lids for canning. That is awesome. And so it's made by a lady on Instagram, and so I will link that information down below because I like to tell you about good things. I like to tell you about handmade and locally made and small businesses and so forth. I will tell you that I'm using these Texas sweet onions. I think I got these at, Kroger. That's a Kroger brand. My favorite onions. Now the onions are going to make a difference in your French onion soup. My favorite onions to use, hands down, for almost anything are Vidalia. They originate from Vidalia, Georgia, and I have talked about them in other videos. I love Vidalia onions. They are sweet. They are just wonderful. They are prime, in my opinion. But I like sweet onions and I like red onions. Those are my two favorites, sweet white and red. It is not the season for Vidalias yet, so I got these Texas sweet onions at Kroger. We love Texas. We have a lot of Texas friends, so hello to y'all in Texas. Okay, let's get started on our soup. All right, first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to put about 2 tablespoons of butter in this Lodge cast iron. Now, let me go ahead and say I'm not using a recipe today. That's another thing about me. I've been cooking for umpteen years. I don't use a recipe on most things. I do if I'm just learning a recipe, but after I've learned it, I tweak it and the way I want it, and I do what I want. So I will put a recipe on my website for you, and I will put the link in the description box under this video. But this particular method today is not a recipe, it's just making it. And also, I want you to learn how easy it is to not use a recipe. I love my cutting board too. Like I said, I like to tell y'all about good things. And this is made by a local fellow. Look how big it is. Custom made. I got it for Christmas last year from Mr. Patient. And I'll put the link to that down there below too. I just love to share these things with y'all. All right, basically we're going to slice onions. We're going to saute them or caramelize them in butter. I mean, look at this knife. Like, look, it's just like butter cutting through. I'm going to caramelize the onions after I've sliced them thinly. I'm going to add the broth. If you're wanting just a simple how-to, this is what I'm doing. I'm caramelizing onions. I'm adding the broth. I'm simmering it. And then I'm going to finish it off under the broiler. So that is it. But let's look at the process. This knife, I'm going to tell you, was sent to me. And I didn't know what I was getting into when I pulled it out of the package. But I'm telling you, I like this. It's a Japanese-made knife. And it's just, like I said, so cuts just smooth as butter. Now, I think ideally, here's the thing. Ideally, on slicing your onions for French onion soup, you probably want the rings. But you know what? That's not as easy to slice as it is when you cut it in half. So, I'm cutting it in half like this. Now, I'm only using a pint of home canned beef broth today. That's why I'm only going to use these 2 onions. And I'm just going to slice them right up. Try to, as thinly as you can. Now, if you have a mandolin, that'd be great. I did have a mandolin once upon a time, and something about it broke. And the way I make a thin slice is I use my knuckles as the guide, and I'm kind of pushing against it. And I'm not cutting myself because my fingers are curved. Now this is economical because you only have to buy the onions, but if you grow your own, there you go. If you can your own beef broth or make your own bread, there you go. All you have to do is buy the Swiss cheese. You can even make your own butter to do this. I mean, make your own. All right, just be careful if you have a good sharp knife like I do. Don't cut yourself. And you know what? If you want to dice it, if that makes you happier, that's fine. It's not the classic way to do it, but it's your kitchen. I've melted the butter, and we're going to caramelize these onions and go from there. I dropped some. Also, my stove is not completely clean, so please forgive me. These onions are going to cook, and caramelizing means to bring out the natural sugars. So I have it on medium. I'm actually going to salt and pepper the onions. This is depending on how seasoned your broth is. So, like I said, I'll give you a recipe. And I'm just going to stir these until they are lightly browned. which means the sugars have been released in the onions. I wouldn't use red onions for this. I would use yellow or white, sweet or not. And I'm just going to stand here and stir these until they are very soft and lightly browned, which means they're caramelized. Now these have been cooking for a couple of minutes, and I just wanted to show you that they're releasing also some just natural juices of water there. That's fine. That's fine. That'll cook out. That's just part of the process. They're starting to soften already. Now, I told you that this was healthy, and it is, because this is our home canned broth. What I do is I can usually 2 to 3, or not necessarily can, I cook or make 2 to 3 batches of broth from the same bones. These particular bones came from a local grass-fed, organic, raised cow, and I had a lot of bones, and I'm talking a lot. I had 2 crock pots and 2 roasters, and full of bones with more to cook after that. So I had a lot of bones from a local farm. And so this is, I label it, this is the second batch. So the first batch of broth had more fat on it. But this is the second batch, and then I make 3 batches from the same bones. But I wanted to show you, I just usually shake it up. This is that tool that Jennifer makes. She's over on Instagram, and you just find the, where there's more space right there. Oh, I spilled it. That's my fault. And there you go. It doesn't crease it or anything. It's awesome. I used a Canadian seal when I was canning this, but my favorite canning lids are Superb because they're local. They work every time. But I had some others that I needed to use up, and so that's what I used on this. So it was a Canadian brand, actually, and that I had actually purchased last year or 2 years ago, I guess, when we couldn't, none of us could find, you know, canning lids. Well, I could, but y'all were saying you couldn't, so I was buying all the kinds I could, and that's before Superb even came into business, came into being. So if you're wondering what kind of canning lids I like to use, I do use up what I have here, obviously, whatever brand, but going forward, I've only ever bought, recently, since the Superb company came out, I've only bought those lids. All right, these are caramelized. You can go a little further if you want. That's fine. Just make sure you're stirring the whole time. The sugars will cause them to stick, even in the wonderful cast iron. All right, this is seasoned, so it already has the salt and pepper in it, and I cooked the bones with a bay leaf. All we have to do is just simmer this for about, I don't know, about 10 minutes. You're just really wanting to just heat the broth. All right, now I typically don't open packages with my good knives. I usually use a pair of scissors, but I just wanted to test this theory to see how sharp this knife was. Wow. All right, I'm gonna have to taste this too. Oh, that's good. Oh, that's good. All right, let's slice off some. I don't know if you hear my daughter downstairs in her bedroom singing. If you do, that's what you're hearing. Today's her day to clean her bathroom on the chore chart, and that's what she's down there doing, singing and cleaning the bathroom. Now what I want to do, I'm only making a little bit for just to show y'all how we make the soup, but let's get some slices, thin slices here. I have a cheese slicer that Mr. Patient bought. Probably ought to pull that out. Love Swiss cheese. You know, something interesting that I notice about family members, folks who are related through DNA, biologically related. My dad loved and loves Swiss cheese. And I do too. And I have noticed, and we have 3 adopted children, and I have noticed that they dislike the same foods that their biological mother dislikes. And I don't dislike a lot of foods myself, but it's the same with liking. I like all kinds of foods that my late mother and my father liked and like. I don't know, I just find that fascinating. All right, this is more than enough Swiss cheese for us to make our soup. Gonna get this favorite cup of Mr. Patience mug, soup mug, given to us. We bought one at Goodwill, and then he loved that so much. Our friend Barbara in Florida noticed that he loved that one so much, so she gave us a second one, and now he will not let anybody use his mug. So anyway, that's what we're going to use today, because I'm going to make this for him. So what we're going to do is to toast. You want to toast whatever will fit on top. Typically, French onion soup is served in the bowl, like in whatever bowl or mug or whatever, and then a piece of toast on top. Now, I've had it with croutons in it. I had it just the other day at a restaurant with croutons, and I didn't love that idea. But I will say sometimes I've had it at restaurants, and it was really difficult to try to figure out how to eat with a big old piece of bread if it's too thick or chewy or tough. So that's just some ideas. But I'm going to choose 2 pieces, and I'm going to toast these pieces. You can put them in a toaster or put them in your toaster oven, which is what I'm about to do. So I want to get these toasted first before I go any further. All right, you might not can tell, but these are toasted. You can toast them to whatever degree you want, whatever brownness you want. All right, friends, this is the entire pint. This mug is big, but I'm going to tell you what, this is going to be only as good as your ingredients, just like anything you make. But if you have good homemade or prime stock or broth, you have some good quality onions, you have whatever, you can use French toast, you can use sourdough toast, but I'm going to just float these right here on top. I'm going to put my good quality, even though it was marked down, it's still good quality local cheese. Oh. And I'm going to melt this in my toaster oven, put however much cheese you want. Let's get this melted in the toaster oven. Or broiled, rather. All right. You can brown that bread and that cheese to whatever extent you want it browned under your broiler. Isn't that awesome looking, y'all? I want to tell you too, I have a French onion soup mix recipe, both on here on YouTube as in video format, and I have it in my first cookbook where I have a lot of mix recipes. I don't know if you can hear those birds outside my window, but I love them. I'm so blessed. I'm so thankful, and I hope you're counting your blessings while I sneak a little bit of Mr. Patient soup. He won't mind. It's gonna be hot. I better wait. Just get a little bit. Oh. It's hot. Hot. Oh my, that's good. And I don't even have the crouton, as they call it. I don't have a taste of the bread and the cheese yet, but that is good. Hope you'll try it. See you next time. Mr. Patient may have to get his own. Yep, he's gonna have to get his own. Oh mercy, that's good.